Happy Sunday. I hope you're well and you're having a wonderful weekend, holiday weekend. I wanted to share some pearls of wisdom that I accumulated this weekend when I went to Harbor Island to hear Rabbi Nissim Mangel speak. And he was 10 years old when he ended up in the war, in the Holocaust. And he went through 7 concentration camps. And I don't know if I can do justice, but I thought I would share some of the pearls of wisdom that I took from this weekend. And perhaps, like it touched me, it'll touch you. One of the stories he tells how he was on the death march and he just really couldn't walk anymore. His skin was off, his bone was exposed, his feet, he was in terrible pain, he was numb. And the first time he wanted to get out of the line, he explained if you moved out even 3 inches, you would get shot. And he's like, I'll end my misery. And just as he made up his mind, that's it, I'm getting out of the line, the first time an 18-year-old boy came over and started to help him. And the second time, he said a couple days later, I can't anymore. An SS officer came over and offered him tea, hot tea from his canteen, and that went on for a few days. Another miracle. He had so many miracles. And the third time he said, I can't, he all of a sudden remembered a story that his father had told him about this man who was in another town, and when he got a message that his wife was in labor and he had to go home for her to have the baby. And he didn't want to walk alone through the forest. That was the only way for him to go home, because there was lots of robbers and bad people and animals. He was scared. So he went to the Baal Shem Tov, which was a big rabbi at the time, and he asked him what to do. And the rabbi said to him, listen, of course in the morning it's safer, but your wife needs you now. You need to go home now. But you said you didn't want to go alone. Just know that you're never alone. God is always with you. And this Rabbi Mangel said that when he remembered that story, it gave him that energy and that push, and he was able to get through the death march. And I've heard that before, yes, God is with us, but somehow when he told it yesterday, it really drove home the fact that we're never alone. God is really with us. So I just wanted you to remember this story in case you're ever in a point where you just feel very alone, that you're not really alone. Another story he tells is how he was in the Lower East Side of Manhattan a few years ago, and this man pulled him in and said, come, I have some shirts I want to show you. I have a great deal. And he went in, and the man showed him some shirts, and he said, you know what, not today. And the man said, why not? He says, because I have to get home for my Shabbos. So he says, what do you have to get home for Shabbos for? He says, I have to get home, and I have to take 2 buses, and it's going to take time. And he's like looking at his watch. And the man's like, again, what are you rushing for? What do you care about Shabbos for so much? And again, Rabbi Mangel says, Shabbos is important to me. I need to get home on time. And the man's, just kept bothering him, like, what is your rush? So finally he says, if you saw what I saw, and you experienced what I experienced, and you felt what I felt, you wouldn't want to keep Shabbos. You wouldn't even believe in God. So Rabbi Mangel shows us, he takes his sleeve, he pushes up his sleeve, he opens up his cufflink, he rolls up his sleeve, and he shows us his number, which is what he showed this man. He says, I was in Auschwitz too. And because of all the miracles I went through, that's really why I believe in God, because without God, there's no way I'd be standing here now talking to you. He says the man turned white and got up and walked to the back and sat down at another table and just was lost in his own thoughts. And Rabbi Mangel said, he doesn't know what he did, what impact he had on this man, but he believes that he did have some major impact, because when he went back a couple months later to buy shirts, the man was gone. They said he sold the store to a new owner. He says the opposite. I'm here because of God. God kept me alive. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been, with all the miracles that he went through for those, those grueling months that he was in the war and those 7 concentration camps. He said it's only because of God that he's here. So whereas this man was saying, don't believe in God because of what I went through in Auschwitz, Rabbi Mangel's saying the opposite. How could you not believe in God? We're here, we're alive, we escaped. So again, it's about belief in God. And another story, he was saying, he asked the question, why is it that our foremothers, Sarah, Rivka, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, all had such a hard time having a baby? They all were barren. They needed major, major miracles. It was supernatural for them to conceive. Why was that? I mean, if God could do what he wants, and these are our foremothers, why didn't he make it easy for them? Why did he make it so hard for them? And Rabbi Mangel was explaining that it was all supernatural. Sarah was 90 years old. She laughed and says, I can't get pregnant, and yet she had a baby. I mean, they each one had a different story. So he explains that we're living in a supernatural world. I mean, God did it so that we should understand that each one had a hard time, but he came into the picture and he had to do the supernatural miracle for them to conceive. And it's for us a message to never give up. You might think you're 90, you might think there's something so impossible that you can achieve, or you need help in your very dark moment in your life. Just know that God can create any size miracle, even a baby at 90 years old. So he was saying that we're living in a supernatural world. The fact that we're standing and sitting and living and breathing just shows that we are every day's miracles, and we just have to acknowledge those massive supernatural miracles that we are experiencing every day. So the message that I took from that really is never give up, and just know that even something supernatural like conceiving at 90 is possible if God wants it to be that way. So that was another message that I took home. And he also told the story about word got out in the camp that it was Passover, Seder night. And he said, we had nothing. We had no matzah. We had nothing to celebrate. And remember, he's 10 years old, this little boy. So they decided that each one was going to recite whatever they knew by heart. And that's how they would celebrate. So he knew the Manishtana, so he started to say the Manishtana by heart. And there were 12 people in each barrack, and they were singing and clapping, and then all of a sudden all 11 people were singing Manishtana after he started it. And then the next person knew a different part, and so that's how they were going around the room, around the barrack. And all of a sudden an SS officer comes in and says, why aren't you sleeping? Because they used to get up at 4 in the morning. They had to be at work before 5. 10 after 4, they had to be ready. So they all lay down, and he left the room. 10 minutes later, they got up, and they continued celebrating. And they're singing and clapping, and the SS officer comes back again, and now they're like, oh, no, and he says, what are you celebrating? Go to sleep now. If I come back again and you're still up, you're all going to be shot. And so they laid down, and this time the lights went out, and it was pitch dark, and they left. He left. They got up 10 minutes later, and again they were singing and celebrating Passover like there was nothing going on. And about a half hour later, the SS officer came back in, and he sees them all singing and smiling and celebrating in the dark. And he turned around and he left. And this Rabbi Mangel explained, not everyone in that barrack was religious. They were Jews, but not everybody had the same level of commitment to God. No one stopped and said, hey, get out, do it outside so that we don't die with you, or take your business elsewhere. Everyone equally celebrated. And he said that was like a miracle in its own, and the fact that the SS officer did not shoot them, and they all thought they were going to die. He says they actually sang until 4 in the morning till they had to get up. They just spent the whole night singing and clapping and celebrating Passover the best way they could. My message from that is take chances. They felt, I guess, they couldn't lose, so if they get shot, they get shot, but at least they're going to get shot doing something that they believed in. So my message is take chances and believe. They could take such strong chances knowing that very well they would have all been shot to death. So that's the message that I took from that last part was, take a chance and believe. And if you have such a strong conviction, take a bigger chance and believe that, God has your back. I hope you enjoyed these messages, and wishing you a fabulous week ahead. full of blessings and miracles and revealed good. I love you. Bye for now.